How much do I actually need to retire? Almost everyone asks it, and almost everyone gets the same useless answer. It depends. So the number stays foggy, the goal stays impossible, and you keep saving toward nothing in particular. Here's the thing nobody tells you. There's a shockingly simple rule that turns that fog into one concrete number, a single target you can actually aim at. It's called the 4% rule, and once you see it, how much do I need stops being a mystery and becomes a math problem you can solve on the back of a napkin. The idea is this: if you can live on roughly 4% of your savings each year, your money should last you decades, potentially the rest of your life. Flip that around and it hands you your number, the exact amount that, once you hit it, means work becomes optional. But, and this matters, the 4% rule is a powerful guide, not a guarantee. It bends. It has catches. So we're going to do two things: show you exactly how it works and where the number comes from, and then show you precisely where it gets shaky, so you don't lean on it blindly. By the end, you'll know your number and how fast you can actually reach it. Let's get you that number right now. The 4% rule says you can safely withdraw about 4% of your savings in your first year of retirement. So we just run it backwards. If 4% is what you live on each year, then your total savings need to be the amount where 4% covers your spending, and the math for that is beautifully simple. Take your annual expenses and multiply by 25. That's it. 25 times what you spend in a year is your number. Why 25? Because 4% is just 1/25. Pulling 4% out of a pot is the same as saying the pot is 25 times bigger than the slice you pull. The two are the exact same statement wearing different clothes. So let's make it real. Say you can live comfortably on $40,000 a year. Multiply by 25, and your number is $1 million. Spend $60,000 a year? Your number is $1.5 million. Spend $30,000? $750,000. Notice what this quietly reveals. Your number isn't really about how much you earn, it's about how much you spend. Lower your annual expenses, and your entire finish line moves closer. The 4% rule doesn't just give you a target. It tells you that controlling your spending is the fastest way to shrink it. So where does this 4% come from? It's not a number someone made up to sound clever. It came out of decades of real market history. Researchers asked a simple, scary question. If you'd retired in the worst possible years of the last century, right before crashes, recessions, brutal stretches of inflation, and pulled out a fixed, inflation-adjusted income every year, how much could you take without running out of money over a 30-year retirement? The answer that kept showing up was right around 4%. This is the heart of what's known as the Trinity study, and the related work by William Bengen. The recipe was specific. Withdraw 4% of your starting portfolio in year one, then each year after, bump that dollar amount up with inflation so your spending power stays steady. And don't touch the percentage again. When they ran that strategy across history, the portfolio survived the full 30 years in the overwhelming majority of cases. It didn't just limp to the finish. Often it grew, leaving more than the retiree started with. The 4% number is essentially the safe withdrawal rate that held up even through history's rough patches. Okay, but why does it actually work? How can you pull money out year after year and still not drain the account? The answer is one quiet, powerful idea. Growth outruns withdrawals. Over the long run, a sensibly invested portfolio has historically earned somewhere around 7% a year in nominal terms. Now, some of that just keeps pace with inflation. Prices rising over time. Strip inflation out, and you're left with a real return of roughly 5% a year in actual buying power. Here's the magic. You're only pulling out 4%. Your money is growing by around 5% in real terms. So most years, the growth more than covers what you take. And the leftover stays invested, compounding for next year. Think of your portfolio as an apple tree. The 4% you withdraw is the fruit you pick each season. The 5% real growth is the new fruit the tree keeps producing. As long as you're picking a little less than the tree grows back, the tree itself stays standing. The principle largely survives and keeps generating income year after year. That's the whole engine. Not magic, not luck. Just a return that, on average, runs a step ahead of your spending. The gap between what grows and what you take is what keeps the whole thing alive. Now, for the honest part, the catches. Because if I sent you off thinking 4% is a guarantee, I'd be doing you a disservice. The biggest one has an intimidating name: sequence of returns risk. It just means the order of your returns matters enormously, especially early on. Picture two retirees with identical average returns. One hits a nasty crash in their first few years of retirement. The other gets those same bad years near the end. The first retiree can be in real trouble because they're selling investments to live on while prices are down, locking in losses right when the portfolio is most fragile. Same average, very different outcome. A bad start hurts the most. That's why some people don't use 4% at all. They dial it down to something more conservative like 3.5% to build in a bigger margin of safety against a rough start. The second lever is flexibility, and it's your secret weapon. The original rule assumes you spend the exact same inflation-adjusted amount every single year, no matter what the market does. But you're a human, not a spreadsheet. If you can simply spend a little less in down years, skip the big trip, trim the extras when the market's bleeding, you dramatically improve the odds your money lasts. A rigid 4% is riskier than a flexible 4%, so treat the rate like a dial, not a law. Lower is safer, higher is riskier, and staying flexible quietly makes any rate safer. So, you've got your number. Now the real question, how fast can you actually reach it? And here's where most people are quietly shocked, because the answer barely depends on your income. It depends on your savings rate. Your savings rate is just the share of your take-home pay you don't spend. And it pulls a double trick. Every dollar you save is a dollar going toward your number. But it's also a dollar of spending you no longer need to fund. So a higher savings rate makes the target smaller and fills it faster at the same time. Watch how violently this bends the timeline. Save 10% of your pay, and starting from zero, you're looking at very roughly 4 decades to financial independence, basically a normal career. Push it to 25% and that can collapse to somewhere around the high 20s in years. Crank it to 50% and you could be looking at around 17 years. Hit a 65% savings rate, and financial independence, that's FI, can arrive in roughly a decade. Same starting salary, wildly different finish lines. The curve doesn't slope gently downward. It dives. That's the real lever in this entire video. Not picking hot stocks, not timing the market, but the gap between what you earn and what you spend. Widen that gap, and you don't just save more. You reset how soon work becomes optional. So let's lock it in. Your number is 25 times your annual expenses, the amount where living on 4% a year should carry you for decades. That 4% comes from real market history, and it works because long-run growth has, on average, run a step ahead of what you withdraw. But remember, it's a guide, not a guarantee. A bad market early in retirement is the real danger, so some people use a slightly lower rate, and staying flexible with your spending makes any rate safer. And the fastest way to reach your number isn't a bigger paycheck. It's a bigger gap between what you earn and what you spend. Find your number. Save aggressively to hit it. Stay flexible once you're there. That's the whole machine. If this turned "how much do I need to retire?" from a vague worry into an actual number you can chase, hit subscribe. That's exactly what this channel is for. The money stuff nobody ever bothered to explain. Next up, Roth versus traditional 401k. Which one actually grows your nest egg faster? The answer hinges on one question most people never ask, and getting it right can be worth a fortune. I'll see you there.